Meanwhile, the NYPD making some big changes, announcing it is closing its undercover anti-crime unit and reassigning all of them, roughly 600 officers, to other teams, citing the need to rebuild trust between law enforcement and the community as protests for police reform continue for a third straight week in New York City.
These are the plainclothes units that operate our traditional anti-crime. Effective immediately, we will be transitioning those units, roughly 600 people citywide. This is a seismic shift in the culture of how the NYPD polices this great city. I would consider this in the realm of closing one of the last chapters of Stop, Question, and Frisk.
Let's bring in New York City Councilman Joe Borelli. Councilman, good morning.
Good morning, Ed.
This is a shocking story because it comes in this context. We'll put it up on the screen. New York Post article. Over the month until June 7th, including the crucial Memorial Day weekend, New York's murder rate more than doubled to 42 murders from 18 the year before, a jolt of 133%. Shooting victims, including wounded, are up 45%. Stabbings are up 2%. Why in the world would the police commissioner at this time decide all of a sudden we're going to do away with this anti-violent crime unit?
Well, it's certainly not a good day if you care about reducing crime and overall public safety in New York City. You know, as he mentioned, these 600 officers are spread out across the city, and they're tasked with one thing, and that's going after the worst of the worst violent thugs and criminal. And their job is not always pretty. They go up to these guys, they use confidential informants, they use intelligence, and they physically rip guns out of these people's hands. These are the people that basically took the city's murder rate from when it was in 2003, when the program started, and they cut it in half over the last 17 years. We should be buying these guys a beer rather than disbanding the unit, but I suspect this is more about Commissioner Shea trying to perhaps even protect these cops than anything else.
It comes at a time when the mayor, as you know, Bill de Blasio, has been under fire. He's talking about, defunding the police in the sense of not abolishing, but moving funds around, which is not sitting well with a lot of people. Interesting op-ed in the New York Times over the weekend, where the headline here, yes, we mean literally abolish the police. We don't want to just close police departments, the op-ed says. We want to make them obsolete. As a society, we have been so indoctrinated with the idea that we solve problems by policing and caging people that many cannot imagine anything other than prisons and the police as solutions to violence and harm. Question, when you hear this semantical debate, what does defund the police really mean? Here's an op-ed in the New York Times saying, from someone on the left, it's abolish the police in some places. And then you see this unit abolished.
And it's insanity. You know, again, these are cops who are going after the worst of the worst. These aren't people investigating, folks stealing candy from a shop. These are people going after the gang leaders and violent thugs who actually cause the majority of shooting and violent crime in New York City. These are the people that we should be, praising. These are the folks that we should be expanding. But again, I think Commissioner Shea sees the world we live in and realizes that these units oftentimes do get into shooting. They oftentimes do get into struggles, and he realizes that the world we live in now, you just can't protect cops who might otherwise make an innocent mistake if a viral video gets put on the evening news.
Now, the Wall Street Journal, though, points out that Commissioner Shea and others are going to push back and point out that it was this very unit that was involved in the death of Eric Garner here in New York City. Did they fail to make the necessary reforms to move forward?
No, look, I mean, this state just passed an anti-chokehold law that was supported by both Republicans and Democrats, so there's progress on that front. Also, there was full federal and state investigations of the police officer involved in that. There wasn't any attempt to undermine justice. Justice was served, and unfortunately, for the people who don't agree with me, the grand jury decided not to indict that cop.
Finally, interesting video that came in overnight. This is a park in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. Some Orthodox Jews were upset that the city had shut this down. They want the kids to go in the playground, and you can see people rallying around the idea of cutting this lockdown, pulling the chains out, and finally, in their eyes, being free and letting people get back outside. Your thoughts on what's happening in this city and cities around the country?
And we're seeing the height of hypocrisy from Governor Cuomo and Mayor de Blasio, where when it's, a business owner opening a business a little bit, or a bunch of Jewish kids trying to go play on a slide, it's don't make me come down there. We're going to shut you down. We're going to go after you. When it's hundreds of thousands of protests around the city, those things are just accepted, allowed, and encouraged. We can't live in this double standard world, especially if there's any chance we might have to lock down again if this very real threat does come back of the virus.
Joe Borelli, appreciate your thoughts this morning. Thank you.